All right. Welcome and thank you for joining us today for our session From Policy to Practice, a framework for AI in academic tasks. And we'll talk about academic tasks and what those are. Some people would use terms more like assessments or assignments, but it's broader than that. It's all encompassing, and I'm going to let our panelists address that. So if it's unclear what academic tasks are, just know that's coming. As we go into the session, I want to make sure that everybody is comfortable, hopefully, with sharing in the chat with each other, asking questions of the speakers, questions to each other, answering each other's questions, sharing resources, sharing techniques or things that you've found through your experiences related to today's topic. This is a large community, a very professional and knowledgeable community, and so there's always a lot of great detail that goes into the chat. We will provide the recording in our recap of the recording and the resources and an abridged version of the chat, and even the Padlet that later on that you all will contribute to. You'll get a synthesized version of that, and you'll have access to that ongoing as well. All right, let's get started here. I'll do introductions, I guess, of myself real quick here. I'm Christie, Vice President for Educational Innovations and Inclusivity at Alchemy. I've been in that role just over 5 years, and before that, 25 years in higher education as a faculty member and faculty developer at the course level, or excuse me, campus level, and also at the Cal State system level. So thrilled to be here with you today and engaging in this session, and I'll be sharing who our guests are, and I'm excited for that as well. Okay, so what we'll explore together, we'll talk about closing gaps between policy and practice. We'll go deeply into how one institution created a framework that faculty can apply, and it relates to a policy, but it puts that into more actionable steps. We'll look at what happens when instructors are able to redesign their academic tasks with these different AI categories that we'll talk about, and then how students respond when these expectations are explicit for them. And then also we'll talk about what you and your campus most need in your respective efforts, and we'll have a dialogue around that as well. Let's jump into first what you told us as you registered. So about Monday, we tapped these data and did an analysis on this first pre-poll question, your institution's current approach to AI use in academic tasks. So as we saw right away, as the clear leader is, there's a need for a framework with guidelines. That jumped out as the biggest, and there's drafting of framework happening. And so we'll have a finished product, if you will. I'm not saying that it'll stay 100% the way it is, but a finished working product to share with you. So yeah, that's you can see the results there, the drafting. There are some informal faculty-driven guidelines. You've got some policy mentions of AI, but no detailed guidance. So you've got moving parts and pieces. Things are still in sort of in the works at many institutions. And so I think you'll see with today's session that here's a model that's further down the path and that people can learn from and adapt and think about your institution type and how you might look at something like the framework that we're going to discuss today. Okay, great. This article from Times Higher Education came out on September 3rd, which was pretty much literally the day we started announcing this session. So that was very timely. Why institutions need more than policy. So the policies are often vague and they're mostly about cheating. It might be the existing academic integrity policy, and then AI is simply inserted or included. Students are left uncertain and anxious about what's acceptable. And so many reports show that students, when asked, tell about their experience, how each and every course is so different about how AI is addressed or not addressed. And in some cases, it's not mentioned. In some cases, it's completely forbidden. Other cases, it's completely required. So it's all over the place. So they're left to try and learn and adapt with every experience, and it's often vague. Employers increasingly expect AI literacy. So the majority of employers will say, just over a majority, about 60%, will say that they would hire an applicant who has AI skills, but maybe less or qualified in more traditional areas because they're seeing that as important. Faculty need practical guidance for task level decisions. So that's very timely for today, and a clear framework that takes policy and clearly puts it into practice. So we'll have the link to the chat. It's in there in the chat. Great. So let's now set the stage and look at one example of a campus-wide effort, and of course, inviting you to share where you are in the chat as we go. So I'm going to pause here and do an introduction. I'll introduce Julaine Fowlin. And Julaine, we have a partnership with MUSC, Alchemy does. And I got to meet Julaine when I went to Charleston this summer for the AI Leadership Symposium that AAC and you put on. And was right away, I'd heard great things, but right away just felt so strongly connected to Julaine and all the things she's doing, and was just really impressed and excited to have more conversations with her, and eventually led to the session that we're here for today, and with her group that she'll introduce briefly. But just to get into it a little bit more formally, Julaine leads innovation at MUSC, overseeing 3 teams: instructional technology, academic media services, and classroom technology. She works collaboratively and strategically to enhance the teaching and learning experience. And her team's committed to supporting the strategic and effective utilization of EdTech grounded in best practices in education innovation, technology, integration, and instructional design. So great profile, great position. And I've gotten to meet with the other panelists that are here, but I'm going to let Julaine introduce them as they come into their section, because she'll be able to do so in a much more authentic, local, and grounded way related to today's presentation. But I want to thank all of them first here at the outset. At this time, I'll turn it over to Julaine, and she'll tell you about the MUSC effort.
Thank you, Brett, and hello everyone in online land. I am seeing the panelist introductions. I'm not seeing the others.
There you go.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. One of the things that I always do when I'm sharing an intervention, I always take the approach of a qualitative researcher, which is primarily the stance that I take with my research, in terms of we could show you the framework, but not giving you the context wouldn't allow it to be transferable. And so today we wanted to share a bit more about the journey that this framework came from. And then from there, we'll go into details, like Brett said, in terms of how it was implemented. So where did we start from? In 2023, like all universities, when the AI boom came, you were probably struggling. For me, in 2023 or 2, actually it was 2022, my son came home and he's like, "Mommy, there's this thing called ChatGPT." And I'm like, "Oh, another fad." But here we are, 2025. So in 2023, MUSC, we felt like we had to put forward a statement. We couldn't just be quiet. And so at the time, the Associate Provost, Dr. Gigi Smith, led an effort with myself and Tom Smith, who's another colleague under the Education, Innovation, and Student Life. So that was the first thing that we did. We had a plagiarism statement, and we knew we had to update it. We didn't change it, but we added artificial intelligence to it. So that was the first thing. Secondly, a lot of things were happening, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. At MUSC, we have strategic alignment. So in a lot of conversations that I'm hearing, K-12 higher ed, AI is like this thing hanging on the side all by itself. And when you think about it in that sense, it becomes so not meaningful. You almost become fearful. And so that strategic alignment was very important. It was collaborative. We had leadership adoption. We did implementation support. And then we had a pilot launch, which is what you'll be experiencing today. So this is just a slide. You know, as instructional designers, we always like to start global to specific. So I really wanted to just set that tone, and for you to keep this in mind, that the framework came from somewhere and was really grounded, not only in evidence from the literature, but really grounded in our institutional context and our support. So let's look at how we grounded it in the One MUSC 2030 strategic plan. Too far. Perfect. So one of the things, if you look on our MUSC's website, you'll see that we have 3 focus areas: empower healthy communities, drive innovation and help transformation, reshape the future workforce. You won't see these 2 strategic priorities, but everyone at MUSC knows that AI is not an add-on. And we have two strategic priorities. The first one is to pioneer the transformative changes through education, research. And the second one, which is really applicable to today's session, is that we want to create an AI competent workforce that's prepared to thrive in a digital world. Next.
It's coming.
So I always say, and I mentioned this, and Elise said that she liked it. And so I always say there is no transparency without literacy. You can't give somebody the keys to a car and say drive, and you don't show them how to drive the car. Or you can't say, here's the keys to a car, you must drive it this way. And so for us, we adopted the DEC AI literacy framework as we needed to have a shared language of when we say AI literacy, what do we mean? There are many frameworks out there, but we adopted the DEC because it resonated with our mission, and especially the section that says human-centric emotional intelligence. That is missing from quite a few of the frameworks. And Dimension 5 allowed it to be translatable to all the enterprise. MUSC, we have a hospital side, we have the education side, and then we also have research within our tripartite mission. So whatever you do, just remember, before you talk policy and guidelines, we do need to make sure that there are frameworks in place for AI literacy. The other thing that we did was on the President's Council, as part of our AI literacy, we had a level setting course. We joked about it and we said it's level G. You know, like when you're in an elevator and you're like, the ground floor is not even level 1. And this course was very important to us at MUSC. If you notice, it's not called an AI literacy course. It's called AI at MUSC, Transforming Education, Research, and Healthcare. And so we could have taken a canned course, but we couldn't, because AI at MUSC is very unique to MUSC. And so for that one, what we have done is that we were able to showcase what are the AI integration efforts that are already going on, and the fact of what it means. We even had our former chief well-being officer share that AI is not going to take the human out of the loop. We felt like it was really important, and this was distributed throughout the entire organization, available in our content management system. And with that, even facilities, everyone had access to that course. And Brett is going to show you, we're not going to play the video in the interest of time. We really want you to hear the rest of the presentation. But for this video, if you click on it in your own time, it's a very good example. It's one of the intro videos where we had all our leaders, from the president, CEO, all the way down to our provost, talk about what AI means for us for our tripartite mission. So again, as I'm reflecting, we start off with the statement, but then really anchored in leadership and really embedded into the fabric of our institution. All right. So what is MUSC's AI acceptable use framework? The first thing is that we wanted to make sure that we brought back the vision, the strategic plan. So in all our communication about the framework, we start off with our commitment. Why does this exist? And what does it mean? So the framework for us is not about AI detection. It's not about making sure that students don't cheat, but it's really about sitting back and saying AI as a, oh, sorry, I was looking at the chat. It's really about being intentional and saying, as we're thinking about learning, when is AI beneficial to learning, and in what stages would it inhibit learning or inhibit us as educators to assess if our learners have achieved mastery of that. And with our AI framework, we adopted it from the artificial intelligence and assessment scale, and we will, the version that Brett will be giving you will have the attributions to that as well, and he placed the link in the chat. So let us look at this AI acceptable use framework, and we'll start off by talking about why we call it academic task and not assessment. And Brett will also be sharing a copy of this that can be distributed and used under a Creative Commons license. So the framework is called AI acceptable use for academic tasks. The first reason why we changed it from assessment is because we didn't want faculty or learners to feel that it's either or with one activity. And so an example that I can give you, I was working with a faculty member in the College of Dental Medicine, and she said, you know, I'm okay if students use AI to help with their background literature and their slide presentation, but I do not want them to use it for their methodology or for their analysis, because this is a key area and they're beginning students and they really need to learn it on their own without AI. And so if we said assessment, you wouldn't be able to say, okay, then for this one, I'm doing AI limited. And then for another one, I'm doing no AI. So that was an example, but let me go through each of the areas pretty quickly so that you can get an idea of what. So we have no AI. Then we have AI planning, which is really focused on before the assignment. And AI limited is for specific areas that I share. AI extensive is saying you can use it throughout. And then my favorite is AI exploration, because I feel if we're really going to really create an AI competent workforce, we do have to make sure that we have assignments where AI is the subject of it. With this, we have example tasks, and then we also have a possible documentation requirements. And this is not about cheating. If you notice that we're not saying, hey, just hand us how you use the AI. We're having the whole documentation be part of the learning process. So we have things like log your interaction, but also reflect on which AI suggestions were helpful and why. And so in the process, we're developing that metacognition. We're having our learners truly think about that. And so with that, we also made it pretty and accessible. And that's one of the things that really allowed us to stand out. I'm quickly going to go over some of the things that we changed as well and why. And then we'll go into some lessons learned so that you can use it and make sure that we have time to talk about other things. And so if you look at the AI assessment scale, you'll notice that it's numerical. We did not want it to be numerical because we didn't want it to feel like, oh, no AI, you're high, and exploration, you're low, or vice versa. So we didn't do that. And then we also wanted to have examples of tasks and documentation that's not in the other scale. And then they had something like called AI collaboration. And we took that out because we felt that all the other areas were collaborating and it would have caused confusion. So those are some of the considerations that we have. And I have included all the considerations on the handout that Brett will share with you, but thought I would give you some context related to that. Brett, are there any questions that you need me to answer moving forward?
No, I saw one from Marguerite. I did a response, where does AI critique of the AI fit in versus the original work? And my personal was just across the levels as sort of a meta process as opposed to embedded within one level.
Right. And when I previously presented this as well, what I would encourage people to do is to, for examples of tasks, change it to suit your discipline. We are all healthcare. And so if you notice, all our examples are healthcare related. All right. There being no questions, we'll go to the next slide.
Great.
All right, so when we're thinking about key considerations, I was like putting on my instructional design brain again and saying, what am I going to do to make sure that you remember what those key considerations are? And I put what my thoughts were in AI. I've used Claude Sonnet. And then I realized that MUSC is coming out. And so I'm like, okay, we're going to use MUSC-E. So as we're moving forward, you want to do a framework. What's the first thing that we're going to think about? Messaging. Remember when I started, I said, this should not be a framework that's really like I'm policing you, but it really should be about pedagogy and how are we preparing the future workforce. So for each of the considerations, I have some questions. So what's your story about what does it tell about our commitment to preparing learners? It has to be usable. When we started this framework, it was plain text. And I give my colleague, Julia Libran-Rood, credit. She made it pretty. It was not that pretty. After it got pretty, everybody wanted to use it. And so we wanted to make it was clear. We also, this is public. We wanted to also make sure that students and faculty members could all use it. Support. You can't just give people a framework and say, go figure. So we have provided syllabus language for our faculty. We have also embedded the image in Brightspace. We have the image icon separately. We, along with our college ed techs and the Center for the Advancement of Teaching and Learning, we meet with faculty, give them advice and things like that. So you got to make your messaging, make it usable, offer support. Next. All right. So we're thinking about collaborative. So in terms of collaborative, this framework, as you can see for today, it was represented by college professionals, CADL, which is the Center for the Advancement of Teaching and Learning. We had much input from leadership. And so with that, we want to make sure that we're being inclusive with that. Usable came back. We told you already what that is. And then with evidence-based, we did not reinvent the wheel. We started off with something that existed, which was the AI assessment scale. And then also we had ownership from leadership from all organizations. So in the handout, you'll see that from our Education Advisory Council, that's made up of our academic deans, all the way up to the Provost Council approved this. And so I think I've given you a mouthful of the framework. And now I will hand it over to my colleague, Elise Nissen. And Elise, our formal title is Instructor and Instructional Designer at the College of Health Professions. My title for Elise is Miss Systems Strategic Thinker. Elise was doing this work with the AI assessment scale. And as soon as we started collaborating, she immediately said, I need to test this. I need to work with faculty. And she ended up working with our champion faculty, Gretchen and Jodie, who she'll introduce. And Elise is not new to this field. She came to us from MUSC from Western Governors, where she had a leadership position in their School of Education, leading course creation, course design, and her area is assessment. So Elise, my colleague, over to you.
Thanks so much, Julaine. Right. Okay, so this starts the panelist section of the webinar. And before I begin, I would like to introduce Gretchen and Jodie, our other panelists. So Dr. Gretchen Seif is a professor in the Residential Doctor of Physical Therapy program here at MUSC. She's the assistant program director. She's a board certified orthopedic specialist. She's a fellow in the American Academy of Orthopedic Manual Physical Therapists. And she's our beloved Education Innovation Committee chair, where we work together on a lot of things AI. And she was also a member, a co-member along with myself and the instructional design team here in the College of Health Professions at MUSC. We participated in the AAC&U Institute on AI pedagogy and curriculum together. And therefore we were involved with Julaine and the university in informing the AI use framework. So that is Gretchen. And we also have with us Dr. Jodie Rush. She is a certified orthopedic manual therapist, a board certified orthopedic specialist. She's director of the MUSC Orthopedic Physical Therapy Residency. And Gretchen and Jodie are the instructors in a course called Musculoskeletal 3, among other courses here in the College of Health Professions. And they are, like Julaine said, our champions of AI. When you think about the continuum of AI adoption and use, they are definitely early adopters. They're on the forefront in AI in education. They have been working closely with the instructional design team here in CHIP to think about and reimagine assessment in their courses. And so that's where you're going to get to hear a little bit about today. And I'm excited for them to share. So for this first panelist question, it's really about how has this framework impacted assessment design, which is one of my favorite things to talk about. So at MUSC and specifically in the College of Health Professions, it has had a deep impact on assessment design, thankfully, because we all know that assessment cannot stay the way that it has been now that AI is in place. And so the framework, like Julaine was saying, you can't have transparency, which is the goal of the framework, transparency to students. It's a student tool, right? And one of the things that I just read recently was an article about you all will know about the article, and I can't remember who wrote it, but it was about how not to use AI frameworks like this. And one of the things is that it's not supposed to be punitive, and you're really not supposed to use these scales to talk about how not to use AI, but to communicate transparently how to use AI when appropriate. And I think that what Gretchen and Jodie are doing is an example of how to truly use this framework well. And it's almost like the last thing that they did. So we were, this is a good example of how it's changing assessment design, because we did all of the work, they did all of the work to reimagine assessment. And that took a lot of work on their part. And without the framework, we didn't have a way to communicate the transparency to student. But I think when we're working with faculty members who are on the other end of the continuum, who are not early adopters, who are not excited about AI, and they know about the framework, then they can start to reimagine their assessments. They can start to think about, if they haven't already, how does AI change the way that I need to teach and how I need to assess? So the way that it's had an impact on assessment design and CHIP is really to help those who are on the forefront be more transparent in their communication to their students about what AI use is appropriate. And on the other end of the spectrum, it's really helped faculty who are more reluctant or not as much on the forefront to think about how their assessments do need to change. So Jodie, I'll hand it over to you to talk a little bit more about the course specifics and how it's impacted your specific assessment design.
Thanks, Elise, and thank you for the wonderful introduction. So at the course level here at MUSC, like Elise mentioned, Gretchen and I are teaching in a musculoskeletal course. So this past summer, the AIU scale wasn't actually fully adopted by the university yet, but it was published. So we used that scale then to help us revise some existing assessments that we had in class. So as she mentioned, the transparency was the key point, that it really helped us clearly identify the specific tasks in which students could leverage AI or in which they were required to do some original work. So the other way we used AI at the course level, we generated some assignment-specific FAQs, and those FAQs helped to guide students in completing their assignments more easily. We definitely got less questions from the students about some of the stepwise processes. And so it didn't increase our actual faculty load by using AI to help generate that and to help the students understand. And then at the beginning of the course, to help ensure that the students actually recognized what this AI use policy was, we required that the students complete a knowledge check, which was just a short quiz in our learning management system. And the quiz itself was linked to each of our assignments and it had the AI guidelines listed. So at least it prompted the students to review the FAQs, and it prompted the students to review what those AI use guidelines were for each of those assignments so that they had that transparency and it was very clear.
Great. Since she put herself on mute, that means it's my turn. So Brett, we'll go to the applying. Yeah, thank you. So some of the things that Jodie and I did in this course, this most recent iteration of the course, were really similar assignments that we've used in the past. But again, now AI is out there. We got to figure out ways in which we should or shouldn't incorporate it. So I'll give a for instance. So I guess one of the people in the FAQs was asking, like, did we give the students the scale? So at the time, as Jodie stated, we didn't have the scale fully adopted. So we didn't give them the scale, but we gave them very specific instructions in our assignment and our FAQs that said whether they could or could not use it. So as one example, there's an assignment that we use at our student-run free clinic where the students are actually writing patient notes and things like that. And so AI was strictly forbidden, but we did take it a step further to say why. And that's a HIPAA violation to give that information. So we were also using the scale to help us help the students start to learn when things are appropriate and when they're not, and maybe why they're not, to give them just a little bit more context. In another example of a course, assignment the year prior, and we used AI for the course assignment, and the course assignment's a teach back, and it's basically the development of a patient case that the students then teach to their class. And then they also have to then develop some skills to practice in the lab room as well. In prior years, we didn't give them any framework whatsoever as to what they should do with AI. We just said, you should put this in Copilot. And I did give a quick little demonstration video on here's how to do it. And the output, so I look up and maybe I'm rolling my eyes just a tiny bit, was kind of interesting. And so some of the things were just not anatomically feasible at all. And if you were a PT, I'd explain it and we'd all giggle. But so those of you that aren't in physical therapy, just know they were some crazy things. And so we took that information to inform us as well as the framework for the following year. So this last year, what we did was we said, not only do they have, or not only should they be using AI, and again, we gave a video on the how to, we took it a step further and said, and you also now have to vet what you were given and tell us how you vetted it, tell us what you changed based on you going back and looking at it. So we were teaching them, I hope, some ways in which to think about what's the AI output giving you, how can you utilize that, and then are you also then taking some, I guess, ownership and responsibility for some of the information that's coming through. So I want to make sure I covered all my points because sometimes I guess. So yes, so this kind of allowed us to then scaffold that a little bit more. There's a question about using KO. Sorry. So in using Copilot and other AI agents were suggestions given to think about. So I did give an example of when it gave me something crazy in my video, like this is not an inappropriate response. And I said, so you got to look for this and then also kind of vet it based on the previous information. So they were doing a teach back on information that they'd had in previous semesters. And it was kind of a culmination project of putting it all together. Yes, we can. Go to the next slide. Thanks, Julaine. So I think from this slide, you can kind of see kind of some of the different things that we kind of thought about. We allowed our students and actually asked our students to use AI. And as Elise was talking about, there's some early adopters. We had some students in our class who were vetting what we were saying in class in real time on AI while we were giving lectures. And then we've had other students who said, I'm never going to use it and I'm not gonna and I don't wanna. So we had that continuum. We did require critical evaluation. The deliverables had to be something that they actually then presented to the class. So it wasn't passive learning, and there was some active components as well as an active learning approach with hands-on skills. And we're hoping that this assignment allows them to be a more reflective user of AI and things like that. So we can move on to the next slide, please.
Great. Quick
Oh,
pause for a
yes.
question from the chat.
Yeah.
This could be across the panel. One of the questions was about faculty AI literacy. So what's your process for ensuring or enabling that to apply the framework, they're themselves literate to be able to do so?
I can take
I'm
that.
gonna Elise go. Or
I can
Julaine,
take
yeah.
that from a university standpoint. And so there have been several informal initiatives, formal and informal. And so one of the things, give the College of Health Professions credit, which Elise will talk about, is they created their own college AI course that all their college members have to take, and they had like a college badge. So that's what they did at the college level. At the university level, one of the first things that we did, we had a level setting conference, huge university conference held at the Marriott, and it was where we shared what was happening at the university. We gave some prompts and different things like that. We've also had several workshops in the Center for the Advancement of Teaching and Learning. And our most recent initiative that we'll be launching is that we adopted the DEC Titanium membership. And with that, we have access to 2 versions of an AI course, one that is for students and one that is for faculty and administrators. So that would be rolled out hopefully this semester, but if not, definitely will be rolled out by spring and would give us some trackable data. Additionally, the Our Day course, which is for everybody, that includes faculty as well. But in terms of formal tracking, I would say completion of CADL initiatives, the College of Health Professions, and definitely when we'll be rolling out the Digital Education Council's AI literacy course.
Yeah, And I will say it takes all of those levels, even down to the next level. So it would be like university level training, college level training, and then it's really instructor level training. So we have the EIC, the Education and Innovation Committee, that we do a lot of AI awareness training. And then the instructional design team works individually with individual instructors to help, educate and do that at the course level. Like, so when they sign up for an ID consult, AI integration and awareness is usually a part of every conversation that we have. And so I think from the top down, they're getting it from all of those areas and all of those different ways, which is helpful.
Great. Thank you for clarification there. I'll move us to the next section.
I believe this is still me. So some of the impact on the student experience. So I did allude to some of this earlier in my previous response, which was we did bring some students along who were completely reluctant. They actually still then had to participate and did some learning on how to use AI. And then I think we also then did had some students who actually felt like it was fun, which is a really great thing to do when you're teaching a course. Because if something seems fun, presenting a patient case that they had a fun time putting together, they had a really, they did spend sometimes a little bit more time on the names of the patients and the occupations of the patients to make it a little bit more fun, but it did then create an entertaining environment as they were presenting those things. So the AIU scale really did help us, at least, even though, again, it hadn't been published by the university, the framework itself really helped us then use that with our students and help frame the conversation. So we became a lot more transparent about what our expectations were. And then it also gave us a way and a framework to actually show them how to use it and give some good demos that hopefully they can take into the clinic in their future professions as well. Yeah. So I think that, yes, lessons learned. I think one of the biggest lessons that Jodie and I kind of came with this, and we were speaking with Elise with this as well, is that the scale itself is really quite helpful in the transparency of it. But in any one assignment, there could be multiple components that could be labeled by different parts of the scale. So I think our biggest lesson was you can't just label it into one section. So AI exploration, but there might be a component that's actually no AI. So kind of thinking through and using it maybe to label each thing kind of individually, each step along the way in the course assignment might be a helpful thing to kind of think about. For us, what I'd like to do in the future is actually do what some of you have been talking about in the chat, which is to actually be more intentional at listing what parts of the AI from the use scale, now that it's published at the university level, so that then we're all having the same language and a common way of kind of talking about it, so that might help them be a little bit more clear as well. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. And I see a question in the chat. Do you agree that nothing is final when it comes to using AI in education and that we are still exploring with curiosity? That's a good one.
The short answer is yes. I think that's the thing that we're all going to have to keep thinking about as things come more, as things change and shift. So just a tiny little example, we've used Notebook LM, which is a free Google service to create podcasts and videos and things from maybe articles or things to make it a little bit more digestible. I just discovered this week that they now have an interactive feature where you can ask it questions. And so I use that interactive feature, and I created a question and it answered really well some of the things. So I think as we go through things, we have to start thinking about how we're going to use these things. How are they not replacing the human? That's important in this as well. And how do I get that to be also transmitted or to our students?
Right. And I think it's strategic to have something be a framework because it's not prescriptive. It applies in various contexts, but it's also adaptable as things shift. So great. All right. Well, we'll keep moving on. We'll keep chat present, but we'll keep moving on to the next section here. And anything to say about the student survey?
I think this goes to what Gretchen was talking about with the common language and the transparency. So we did do a survey to validate, we wanted to, this was a pilot period. And so in SHIP, we decided that we wanted to validate the scale, at least in this one course. So we created a survey and we surveyed students and faculty, which included Gretchen and Jodie. And it really took what they had done in their course previously before the scale was introduced. So all of the explanation of how AI should be used, and tried to understand how a student, for example, would translate that into assigning a category on the scale. So remember your teach back assignment. What category on the AI acceptable use scale do you think that assignment fell into? And so we were really testing to see if they could, translate what happened into what category that would have been assigned on the framework. And they did really well in this. And we got some feedback that was helpful in understanding when it might be confusing. And I think that led to us thinking about being a little bit more discreet and labeling parts of the assignment versus the whole assignment, because I think that was what caused a little bit of confusion for some students. But this was particularly interesting because this is our goal. We really want students to use it as a tool so that they can better understand when AI use enhances versus impedes their learning and development. And it did do that. According to the survey, 97% of students felt that it did. And I think that imagining this tool as not just for faculty and determining what level of assignment, it's a tool for students, right? This common language helps them understand, why am I being asked to use or not use AI, and why at this level, and why at this time in my program. So I think that it's a good testament to the use of a tool like this because it does result in their better understanding.
And if I may endorse that, Brett, a little bit, one of the distinctions that we made is that when we were creating it, we were very, very deliberate that this is not a framework for students and it's not a framework for faculty, it's a framework for all. And so we phrased it that way, and that's very important, so that there's this power dynamics with the scale. Not the scale, I keep saying scale, sorry, we adapted the scale to a framework.
Love it. And I love the intention of this statement. It's not about the, when am I in bounds? When am I out of bounds? When am I going to get busted? I really love the framing of this statement. Great. All right, let's talk about adoption across courses.
Yeah, so what we've seen is that, I think I mentioned the reluctance at the beginning of the panel session. And we dug in, the IT team received some feedback. Why would I use this framework? This may only introduce the idea of students using AI to cheat, right? That's like the response that we didn't necessarily expect or want. But when we dug in a little more, we realized that the faculty members who were expressing that were teaching very foundational courses in their program. And it made sense that there were a lot of things that they needed to learn how to do for the first time without the assistance of AI in that course. And so it helped facilitate a conversation between the ID team and the faculty of, okay, well, it may be very appropriate that you don't want them using AI on most or all of the assignments in your course because of its foundational nature, which has prompted us, we're working more with the division directors now. So the ID team is partnering with division directors and program leaders to better strategize at a program level what AI integration looks like. And so instead of thinking about how am I going to adopt this framework in my course, it's more of the conversation has kind of gone in the direction of, okay, how can we create a strategy for our program so that an individual instructor will know better what category of AI use may be appropriate for the types of assignments in their course based on the overall strategy for the program. So I think that has been a really helpful conversation that's come out of the framework. So in addition to just being really specific about which parts of an assignment are at which category, and also communicating to students the why behind it. So I think one of the things that's really important is you may have this very beautiful framework like ours that works well and communicates this common language. But if you're only sharing the category of acceptable use and not the why behind it, then it's not helping students learn and grow from a metacognition perspective, and it's not helping them understand when they're on their own, when they should and shouldn't engage in AI during their learning. So I think that was another lesson learned, that you can't just apply the scale. You have to have conversations with students about why they are or are not using AI in this way. And you have to document that within your assignments, just like Gretchen and Jodie have done. They don't just plop in the icon, right? It's a conversation. The instructions are very robust about how and why you're doing this. So I think that that's really important. Anything else from any of the other panelists about lessons learned that we haven't already covered? I don't want to forget anything. Okay.
Maybe one question in the chat, a question about how can you sort of distinguish or control for level 2 versus level 3? How important is that? Any feedback there?
Oh, I think everybody unmuted. I was like, I mean, I'll take a stab at it, and then Julaine, you can correct me or add into it as well. So I don't know that it's important to always have it quite so delineated between level 2 and level 3. I think it's being clear in your examples. So level 2 and level 3, may have in part of the assignment, here are the parts of the assignment you can use. And so that fits in within level 2, and here are the ones within level 3. So again, it shouldn't be punitive, it should be informative. And then the other thing that Jodie and I added to both the quiz that we had at the beginning related to AI, and in every FAQ and assignment, there was another component that said, and if you have any questions, please have a conversation with the faculty. And these are the appropriate people to reach out to. So that if they did have anything that they wanted to clarify, then we could clarify that for them as well.
You
Great,
nailed
thank you
it.
so much.
And then also we distinguish AI planning to say, okay, then this is where you're using ideation. You're not actually using it to complete the task. And so those are kind of like the main difference, where AI planning is before, while AI limited is a limited aspect of the task, like actually doing it. And of course, if you wanted to get technical, you could say the pre-brainstorm is part of the task, but if we got too over technical, then we'll never get anywhere. So that's, and I do know there was a question about what is allowed, and Gretchen answered. We're a Microsoft campus, so we do have Copilot and or AI, I think they're called IT governance. They have also, on the example syllabus verbiage that Brett will be sharing, you'll see there's something that's to ask students to bookmark a horseshoe page. Horseshoe is our intranet page. And on that, IS gives guidelines about even the free ones that we're allowed. And we're in the pilot phase right now of BuddhaBox AI. And so that's also another thing that we're piloting and have permission to use.
Great, thank you. I'm going to move us forward here. So let's go. Thank you, panelists, for all of that and for the chat comments. And I saw another question about will we be sharing the chat. We will share an abridged transcript where we'll distill it down to the resources, strip off the time codes, the names, and all that, and get you to the good stuff in our recap. So jumping forward, yeah, Josh, gotcha. Jumping forward, let's look at what you told us on this next pre-poll question. So what would help your campus most in advancing AI use in teaching and learning? A clear framework with guidelines for AI use in academic tasks. So the last 45 minutes or so, we've been talking about that, and you've got the resources coming to you in moments here that you can access. Faculty training and development, examples of effective practices. Those second and third items nested within a framework, I think would be an ideal situation for everybody to move forward with a similar context and then applying within their disciplines, et cetera. So those were the lead things that you told us. And so that was great to hear, because that's what we've tried to share for the most part, is those the top item for sure, and then related pieces that the panelists have gotten into there as well. Let's get you engaged in a Padlet here so we can take some more of your thoughts and organize that and get this collective intelligence into our framework. We have the link in chat, hopefully, or coming any second here. I stay on this for the QR code, folks, but you can all join us in the Padlet, and then I'll jump in there in just a moment. And with the Padlet, you'll see the different columns and the prompts, and you can reply to one or more of those, and that'll give you a sense of what others are thinking in those different types of questions and contexts. And then you'll have access to that ongoing. And then I'll talk about what we'll do with that going forward. Okay, so join us there, and I'm going to go ahead and shift to that myself now. Okay, so you see the column prompts and then a little bit of explanation just below, and then you can click the plus key down at the bottom where it says add comment. And that's where you can share your thoughts and your experiences. AI literacy training, yes, absolutely. That to me, I call it baseline foundational, where you can get everybody to a certain level where you can have a common conversation, a constructive conversation, an informed conversation with as many people as possible around you. So I'll talk about what we're doing and what we're enabling through Alchemy. So a framework like this related to what faculty are doing, how they're submitting proposals. Yeah, I'm unclear how to relate it to the ERPT process, so reappointment, tenure, and promotion processes. Student-facing resources or exemplars for more hesitant faculty, so they can start seeing it in action. They can start maybe seeing purpose, how it might work, and what the purpose, yeah. Let me move down. I'm going to hit refresh here. And I'll look across lanes here, passing on lessons learned. Yeah, always academic integrity, intellectual property. So security and ethics, particularly with these third-party tools. Required reflections. You saw that modeled in the framework, great. And informing students as to which tools are most appropriate, particularly the campus subscribed ones. AI literacy for students besides prompting, and even just what prompting is or can be, that it's not just asking a question or just a search type experience, that it can really be this constructive Socratic dialogue. You can do persona interaction analyses, all sorts of things are possible. So really broadening the sense of what, first of all, what effective prompting is, and then also the many types of prompting that can be done for different experiences. Okay, let me refresh. We're going to jump out from the Padlet in just a moment here, but feel free to keep commenting and know that this will be available to you ongoing, the link that we gave you in the chat, and that'll also be in the recap. What I love doing is taking the export of the Padlet and then doing my own GenAI analysis with that and doing a write-up of here's what the participants, here's what the community told us on this topic and these aspects. So I really enjoy doing that, and that's been really powerful using GenAI for that. Okay, one last peek, and then we'll go to wrapping up here. All right, let me go back into the slides. One of the things that we're doing, and we won't get into a full demonstration today, that's not a focus, but through Alchemy and through our Curie platform is we have these teaching optimizers which help instructors develop resources, new resources, revised resources, even full courses. And whenever they're doing a task that's related to an assignment or assessment, is we've actually taken the AI assessment scale, we've embedded it into these optimizers. So when they create this assessment, they can designate which level they want for student AI involvement or not. And then it develops that resource for them and gives them guiding language. It gives the students guiding language, but also the faculty member in a facilitation guide gives them guiding language for how to properly then gauge AI use and incorporate AI use with the students. So that's a way that we're taking that scale and putting it into our tools, templates, and wizards, which we call optimizers. And then there was a question about AI literacy. We've been offering as a pilot through summer this AI literacy micro-credential, which is 4 modules, each designed to take about an hour. and it's fully online and asynchronous. It's free. So we have the link here for those that are interested. We've had over 500 people register so far. About 100 of them are actively involved in this micro-credential experience, and you get the badges and you get the certificate. So if that's something that enables you, then great, you can look at that. There are other resources out there, but this one is fully aligned to be educator driven, where a lot of them out there are really technology driven and they might be more tech sector focused. So we've taken this one to bring in the best learning science and design principles possible, focused on educators and the work that they do. And that's for faculty and instructional designers primarily. So that's in the chat for you. And then you'll get the session recap in your inbox, usually within 48 hours. I'm not going to make promises here, but Kelly from our team is really great at getting these turned around, getting the recording processed, getting the chat transcript processed, the Padlet will be ready. And then these are the links that you have also to the resources that have come from our panelists at MUSC today, and also resources that they've drawn upon. We put those together here as a collection. So we just want to make sure you have that all in one place coming through the recap if you haven't already grabbed some of these things by way of the session. Last, I want to thank Julaine, Elise, Gretchen, and Jodie so much for your time and participation, sharing your journey, your expertise, and where you're going from here, and also how it's impacting your programs, your courses, and your students. So thank you so much for sharing, and thank you everybody else who has participated today and been part of this.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.